Hey, this is going to be our 0 to Hero build video on the Holy Flame Totem Hierophant. We're going to take this character from level 1 all the way to our 2 stones, killing Ire and Exarch. Now, we're going to be playing around with Holy Flame Totem. You might be asking why. Well, I like Holy Flame Totem. That's pretty much the only reason. Also, as well, I needed some practice before we played Freesia next week, which is why I'm playing a more underutilized skill just for the fun of it. Holy Flame Totem is a rather fun skill. The idea is you summon a totem and it shoots out a constant spew of projectiles while it's channeling, and it's kind of cool. The problem is the damage scaling on it is kind of low. Now, what's crazy though is actually a very strong skill for leveling, as that damage fall off doesn't really happen until way later. Now, we are actually going to be utilizing his bigger brother, Holy Flame Totem of Ire, which has more damage than normal Holy Flame Totem, but we'll talk about that when we get there. Now, for you people who like to look in the description of videos, Path of Building is actually very useful for PoE 1. If you look in the description, there will be a Path of Building link. This will allow you to put my entire character into your Path of Building. Simply just look at the upper right and choose a different loadout, and you can go from every single different checkpoint of my character from level 1 all the way to the finish, and it makes it way more consumable than the link garbage that I'm usually forced to do. But yeah, overall, we're gonna have some fun. Now for leveling, we are going to be using Rolling Magma and Holy Flame Totem and Flame Wall, the usual meta trifecta for leveling. Early on, while we're just running around and killing packs, we're just going to put down Flame Totem and then Flame Wall, and then we're just going to keep running, and then we're going to use Rolling Magma for extra single target. The reason why we're using Rolling Magma is Holy Flame Totem's really good for clearing stuff while on the move, but it is not good for single target. So we actually utilize Rolling Magma to enhance our single target until we get access to Ancestral Bond, which will allow us to run 2 totems, which will fix the single target issue for Holy Flame Totem early on, right? So that's the main setup that we're going to be going for all the way until we get Ancestral Bond, which is like somewhere in Act 2, I believe. Gotta kill the crab here to get an essence. Essences are very strong early on in the campaign as they act as functional alchemy orbs. Even if you have an essence of an item that you really don't like, let's say that you're playing a melee attack build and you end up with a spell damage essence, it doesn't matter because you can use it to slam on another different piece of gear. Like you can slam it on boots for movement speed, other pieces for res, on rings for even more res or HP. Pretty much the world is your oyster when you have essences in the campaign, and it's something I suggest every new player to stop and kill all essences you see, as it opens up your options in terms of early game gearing way more than completely ignoring them, at least in my opinion. Okay, here's our Brutus. Thankfully, it's done pretty quickly, as Holy Flame Totem plus Flame Wall and Rolling Magma is a very good combination, especially if you update your weapons into goat horns, which are like flat fire to spells on gear, and that allows you to do plenty of damage to delete him very quickly, even with, shitty gear. As long as you have even the white base wands are enough to juice your single target enough to kill Brutus very quickly. Come here, Fairgraves. I got a bone to pick with you. Okay, now we're doing Merveil. Thankfully, her mermaid fantasies don't work on us because we're a Templar, which means we have a neck that is way too long to be rubbernecking, at least in my opinion. God, you're not going to get that joke unless you're 50 years old, dude. When I was young, I was forced to watch Happy Days when I was 14. So I know all the lingo from the 20s, dude. It's great. Oh my goodness. But yeah, Merveil goes down pretty fast because, Rolling Magma is a good skill, it turns out. Now, Act 2 is when we get access to Ancestral Bond, as we pretty much shoot for it immediately after grabbing some damage at the beginning of the passive tree. This means that we can simply plop down 2 totems, then Flame Wall, and then keep moving. This is pretty much going to be your pretty much designated playstyle the entire time you play this character. Put down totems, put down Flame Wall, move on. That's pretty much all you're really going to do after this point, because totems are just really nice. And let me tell you, it's really refreshing to play a normal totem build after playing PoE 2 for a few months, because it's nice being able to move while I'm also doing damage. Crazy, right? Ooh. Of course, we got to deal with the prick here, Creighton. Unfortunately, early on, if you're trying to force Holy Flame Totem, let me tell you, it's not the most damage whatsoever. The biggest issue is it just doesn't have the same scaling that other skills has. So like, you're kind of just, up a creek without a paddle for a while, right? Like the damage scaling is definitely not there. I'm like rewatching the footage. Creighton's taking forever. Oh my goodness. Gracious God. Thank you, finally. We also have to deal with the Lyra for extra passive point. Of course, the Templars got to show this witch what's all about holy damage, because, like she's a witch and, Templar's a holy man, because that obviously means he's right, because, he's got a long neck, that means he's right? Like obviously in philosophy and stuff, right? If you got a longer neck, like that means you're always going to win arguments, right? Because like you just tower over them as you debate them, right? Gotta quickly kill Piety's boyfriend here. Yes, he is. If you check the lore, she actually has a lot of boyfriends. Actually, if you read the lore and stuff, Piety, woo, she gets laid with everyone, dude. Oh my God, she even got laid with my dad, dude. Like she gets laid with everyone. Hey, you. If you have arachnophobia, you should look at the screen right now. It's great, isn't it? Dude, I think of the movie of the same name, Arachnophobia. I'm pretty sure it's like where like the big mother spider breeds with the small little daddy spider, and she just breeds an entire army of spiders. Like, wouldn't that be interesting? Just like breeding your own army? Maybe that's a better question for another day, right? Maybe. Speaking about spider flicks, dude, like Daddy Longlegs was like, oh my God, it was such a childhood memory for me. I remember seeing like the giant jumping spiders like attacking the buses and stuff. Like that was really cool, dude. Like I can't believe that they haven't made like a sequel of that. I'd have to go see if they did, because like that's definitely a movie that deserves some more praise, in my opinion. Sure, it's like campy in the 80s and all that, dude, but like I'm not a critic. Like who cares? Like I see cool big spider, I'm happy. I'm pretty sure this is where the Vol keep their septic tank. So, whoa, oops, it's open now. Ooh, that's stinky. Dude, climbing this pyramid, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of The Mummy 2, where they like go into that jungle that's like surrounding the big pyramid, and you have like those killer monkeys that are like killing everyone or whatever. I think they're monkeys. I can't remember exactly. I think they're like actually like people that are like, shrunken, kind of like shrunken heads, right? I think that's what they are. Like it's really fucked up, dude. I need to watch The Mummy again, dude. Oh my God. I have no fucking time. Free shit's in like a week, dude. How the hell am I supposed to watch all that and like all the Lord of the Rings at the same time? I have so much to watch. Now let's get ready for the longest Vol Oversoul fight you've ever seen. Holy Flame Totem DPS, baby! Woohoo! Look at that. Dude, we might be done like next year, like 2027. It'd be great, right? Oh my goodness, like we're going so fast right now. There you go. That's some real DPS. Oh, so beautiful. It's okay. It gets a lot better later, and by a lot better, I mean like leaps and bounds better. That's actually something interesting about Path of Exile, is as long as you know what you're doing and your skill isn't a piece of junk, like, I don't know, siphoning trap, right? You can really just push anything to the extreme as long as you know what the fuck you're doing, right? It's not that hard. Now, of course, trying to do it really early on when you have no support for it, that's a bit of an issue, right? Do you think anyone comments on the fact that like Templar has no pants? Like in the lore anyways? Because like if you like watch like everyone else in like the camps, like in town and all those places, they all have pants. Everyone has pants. He's like the only dude who doesn't have pants. At least I'm not sure. No, of course, there's gonna be like some guy who's like, actually, this one mob in Act 7, Part 1, Part 2, he actually has no pants. So Dread, you're incorrect, which means you need to be canceled on Twitter. Thankfully, I don't have a Twitter, right? But still. That's gonna happen. Actually, there's like this one monster in like a nook and cranny that has like no pants, but like seriously, isn't that kind of weird that he's the only one that doesn't have pants? Like, look, like my character right now, he has a bucket on his head and a chainmail suit. What's the chainmail suit gonna do for you if you have no pants? Like, they could just like, have you ever like watched the Odyssey? You know about like Achilles' heel, right? They could just like hack at your feet and you die, right? I don't know. Maybe God's protecting him at this point, or his God, whatever you want to say. Of course, got to do the piety gangbang here. Really interesting though, because like since she is like pretty much like in bed with like everyone in the universe, right? Like in the lore, like these could all be her lovers for all you know. Like sincerely, I don't know. Maybe she goes that way. Maybe she definitely goes both ways. Who knows? But yeah, piety. Oh, Piety. I remember Piety back in the day in 3.0. She was a much different beast back then without all the power creep, right? She was definitely way more difficult. And then someone just be like, oh, well, back in my day, Piety was the last boss in the game. Shut up, boomer. Every time I go in the sewers in this zone, it kind of has that smell of Miyazaki, like I'm not supposed to be here. Got to do Piety round 2 real quick. She's really annoying for this build because like I have to like set all my totems up and stuff and set up my flame wall. And like by the time I get everything set up, like she teleports away. Rather annoying, but she doesn't do that much damage. So that's one of the nice things of being a Templar with like access to consecrated ground like this is like you don't die that often. Okay, for the first time here, we're gonna just play the boss fight and I'm just gonna shut up, finally. Oh. Okay, gotta kill Vol real quick here. Release the soul for the extra passive point. Easy. Get to this point in the campaign. Now, this is usually where I stop and I go and do my ascendancy, as this is usually where you want that power spike. And this is definitely where Holy Flame Totem gets a lot better, as you go from having 2 totems to 3 totems, which is 50% more damage. And that's also on top of all of the totem placement speed for Hierophant. Okay, here's Azaro's last phase. I'm going to shut up real quick. Okay, gotta kill Calm real quick. Now, Calm, he's kind of a big like pushover, to be honest. As long as you're not standing in the big like volcano projectiles, like you're fine for the most part, right? And don't stand in his attacks. I might actually die here. I don't remember, to be honest. It was like yesterday, and I was like a little tipsy, you know. But yeah, we kill Calm. Then, of course, here's Duresso as well. As you can see, the damage is a lot higher now. Doing Piety once again. This phase always sucks, as there's so much fizz damage just running around, right? And of course, the Act 4 boss fight. Like I said, I'm going to shut up again, let the music play. You can skip forward if you don't want to see it. Here you go. Okay. You know, I was playing PoE when Act 5 came out. It was so shiny back then, and it's still shiny now. So I have a lot of nostalgia for it. But as you can see, we finally have multiple totem support. Multiple totem support is like really where the build starts popping off, as the clear just feels so good with all of the multiple projectiles on the Holy Flame totems just spewing out, and the coverage is great. Now, of course, you know, the damage isn't as amazing as other builds, but at the same time, you just put down the totems and you just keep running, and that allows you to keep up with other builds, as, you know, not many builds get to do that, where they get to do damage while moving, right? Because, like, you have, like, brands, maybe, and stuff like that, but totems are a very unique playstyle in that regard, which is nice. But yeah, multiple totem supports is definitely something you want. Now, we are going to speed up the leveling a little bit. I'm just going to like skip around and stuff, mainly just because like there's not really much that's going to change about the character at this point, because most of the changes are just getting better gear of what I already have. Pretty much if you've gotten to this point on the character, you've pretty much already done the campaign. Now it's just kind of like just extra fluff at this point. And that's usually most builds in PoE 1. Now here's the Innocence kill. Not a very hard fight, as you just run around. Now, something I regretted while leveling that you probably should fix is you probably should be running a Determination aura. The fizz mitigation is really good at this point in the campaign. It's just, I kind of just was like, my biggest issue with Holy Flame Totem was I wasn't sure how the damage was going to feel all the way through progressing. So I just kind of went for the glass cannon approach, as you know, it's hard to fail that, right? Sure, I'm a little bit squishier, but at the same time, at least things are dying, right? But thankfully, Holy Flame Totem, once I got multiple totem support, like it started feeling really good. So like you could definitely get rid of Anger Aura and go for Determination at this point, at least if you feel like it, right? Now here is the Kitava 5 fight. As normal, I'm just going to shut up and let the music play. So something interesting is Einhar actually decided to join me for this fight, as he also hates mermaids, which is, you know what, completely understandable after what happened in Act 1 and Act 6, right? And of course, thanks to, you know, Einhar's brochacho help, Sogath is dead. Moving on. Another spider killed. There you go, Arakali. Dude, the Templar taking on twins? No one at the local pub in Kingsmarch is going to believe him, let me tell you. Ooh, no one's going to believe him at all. The Depraved Trinity as well. You know, I could make like 50 different jokes here, but they would all get me canceled. Now, normally what I do is I leave my last two labs till like right before Kitava, mainly just because like Acts 6 through 9 don't need any extra power from your character, so you kind of just like zoom all the way through until you get to Kitava and you're like, well, I might as well get my labs done now, and that's usually what I do. Now, a little bit of a mistake here is I choose to go for the Arcane Blessing and the extra more damage per totem node. I should have eschewed the Arcane Surge node and went for the Power Charge and Endurance charges, mainly just to smoothen out my early game, because, I felt slightly squishy all the way through, and it would have been better if I just had the Endurance charges, at least in my opinion, in hindsight. But like I said, I was still functioning under the thought process that Holy Flame Totem was going to do literal ZDPS, but I was surprised later on, as you'll see. Now, in theory, you should be running a bunch of labs, Merc labs, because there's a 10% chance to turn a gem into a transfigured gem of the same type. So we're trying to go for Holy Flame Totem of Ire. Thankfully, there's no other Holy Flame Totem, so we get it immediately. Essentially, the way that Holy Flame Totem of Ire works is it shoots out in a line, and it also has 25% more cast speed, if I'm not mistaken, which is very strong. So that's what we're trying to go for here. Now, one thing to note about the skill is your clear is going to be a little bit worse early on. Pretty much what ends up happening is with the coverage of the projectiles, you're hitting the entire screen at once, while with the lines, you're not hitting the whole screen at once. So your clear will feel a little bit worse, but your single target will absolutely skyrocket, as you'll pretty much have 25% more damage. Now, this is my second lab run. I get absolutely positively lucky off this because I just decided to transform a skill gem into a transfigured random gem, and we hit the Holy Flame Totem of Ire here, which is going to be amazing. Now here's Act 10 Katava. I'm going to shut up and let the gameplay show itself. Now, would it really be a PoE video if we didn't reward ourselves with some microtransactions? This time around, we're gonna run the Victoria set with the I can't remember what kind of wings, but like they're the mechanical wings, and I think this looks pretty good. Pretty good. Now, I forgot to say this in the intro, but we're gonna completely ignore Breach for this entire run, mainly just because like it spits out 6 links like it's nothing. So it's better off and better for you guys if I just completely ignore Breach, which I do. And to be honest, usually on these 2-stone runs, I just ignore every single league mechanic because like there's nothing really that matters until you get to red maps anyways, at least in my humble opinion. So here's our first T1 map. Now, of course, like I said, the range of the totems feel really good. One thing that I made a mistake here is when I eventually got my 5 link, I didn't go for returning projectiles early on. You should definitely go for returning projectiles early on, as it helped out my clear significantly. Now here's our first tier 2 map. As you can see, the damage is slightly lower than what we'd like for clear. That's because since we're running multiple totem, this means that our damage is fractured by 5, which means that, you know, sure, on the DPS, you know, number in PoE, I'm at like 200, 300k right now, but that's divided by 5 when I'm clearing, right? I get an absurd drop here. I get a Immortal Flesh day 1, which is absurd. Immortal Flesh is just an absurd belt to have on the first like few hours of the character. Now here's our first T4 map. Now what's really nice about this build is you just put down the totems and then you walk around the mobs. And you can kind of have them shoot in front of you too. And once you have plenty of damage, white mobs usually die in like a tick or 2. And then, you know, of course, rares take a little bit longer. I've noticed that because of the lack of damage early on, you do want to just put your curse on a rare and just move on, or like your Arcanist brand, which has all your curses and stuff, and then just like move on to the next mob, depending how tanky they are. As you can see, the totems have a really good range, right? They actually have a really good range, and it kind of makes up for the fact that, you know, they don't do as much damage because their damage uptime is huge because as you can see, they just spear right through mobs, right? It's like having ice spear totems, right? That's what it feels like. Now this is where I start trying to craft some items, mainly on a wand. You either want plus level to skills or you want flat fire damage. So either the implicit flat fire damage or you want to go for, of course, like flat fire craft. Both are completely fine. Now, another thing you also want to go for is as much cast speed as possible. Cast speed's very important. It's like one of your main metrics of scaling damage, so it's definitely something you want to be looking for on the suffix of weapons, and essences can help out with this as well, right? Now we do hit a 5 link here. I make a huge mistake though. Instead of going with Pierce, which will give like 20% more damage, you should go with returning projectiles instead here, which was a huge mistake on my part, but I'll be honest, I just completely forgot that returning projectiles was a thing, I'll be honest with you. Now here we actually found a lab trial. This is a little bit early to find a lab trial. Now you could try to go and do it, but I didn't feel tanky enough. I actually ended up respecking my nodes and getting the endurance charges early, and that helped me out with lab and getting a little bit more HP, mainly just because like you want to do it and you don't want to die, so it's better to be tanky and have the fight with the Zaro take a little bit longer than normal and get access to your 4th ascendancy point than it is to like try to rush it with more damage and then like die accidentally and have to find another trial, right? Because you're an SSF, you have to go find your own trials at this point. Now here's our first tier 7 map. As you can see, I changed my MTX as I wanted to try out the Ghost Flame totems, and I absolutely fell in love with them. I love them so much. They look so cool. But so the main way that we're actually progressing through tiers of maps is we're doing Kirak missions. So you do Kirak missions and he refreshes the store. And when you refresh the store, you can buy more maps with chance orbs. So what you want to do early on is focus on progression. And what do I mean by that? You want to focus on getting as many Atlas points as possible and beelining to the node that gives you plus 20 Atlas points and then grab even more. Because the more Atlas points you have, the more adjacent drop chance that you have for maps, and of course, higher chance to drop higher tier maps. You just want to grab all of those nodes. You want to grab all of the chance on Kirak missions on complete, and that will allow you to fill out your Atlas very quickly on day 1, as you'll be constantly influxed with maps. And you just rotate, you do the maps you have, then you buy from the vendor. Then once you're done with the vendor, you refresh the vendor. And what helps out a lot early on is you can turn alteration orbs into jeweler's orbs, and then turn those jeweler's orbs into fusings, and then turn those fusings into eventually into chance orbs. And you can use those chance orbs to buy maps, or you can use the chance orbs to buy scours, which then you can scour maps and then alch the maps, because when they're alched, they'll give you more loot, right? So you kind of want to keep this economy going where you pick up items, sell them for alteration shards, then turn all those alterations into jewelers, etc., all the way into maps. And this allows you to keep going as fast as possible while also, progressing map tiers. As you can see there, I walked into that skeleton like I'm an idiot. Now we're finally doing our Uber Lab, as I feel significantly tankier at this point, as I've grabbed more ES, more HP, and the endurance charges, but I'm going to turn on the music and let it play. Now here's our first tier 10 map. As you can see, we have the Arcane Surge and returning projectiles now, which is so much more damage than before. Now here's our first red map. Now when you get to red maps, you want to kind of like take it slow a little bit. And what I mean by that? Well, once you get to red maps, you can actually get really lucky, and you can like push all the way to tier 16s immediately through like a few chains of maps. And to do that, you need to make sure that you're like kind of full clearing them a little bit so you can get the map drops. Now, the reason why this is so important and so good is when Kirak does his missions, right? His highest tier of map in the mission, let's say I do a red map, is based on the highest tier of map that you finished, I believe. So if you do like a T16 map, he will offer T16s in the red maps, which means, of course, you can get access to more T16 maps for free. You can even get access to T16 maps by running T11 maps, because, the red map the red map mission doesn't care that you're running T11s to get the red map mission, which then gets turned into T16s because of Kirak. So you want to play your cards right and kind of take it a little bit slower here and not lose your maps, at least in my opinion. At least early on, if you're not playing like the best of the best of the best build. Now, of course, if you're playing a real build, then like that's not that big of a deal, right? Now, first red map does mean we get our first Eldritch boss, which is going to be the Polaric. We're just going to let the music play, have fun. Okay, same thing, but now Mr. Toilet Man. I do accidentally die here, unfortunately, because, being flushed down the toilet, but, shit happens. Oh, shut up. Now, at this point, we're going to be just rushing to T16s as quickly as possible because it's pretty much getting to the end of the run. Now, one thing you could do in theory is run Holy Flame Totem, the normal version, for clear, and then run Ire for single target. You could just do like a simple gem swap that is on the table. I did not try that because I was having too much fun with Ire, but it might end up being just better for clear. But, I'll leave that for you guys to mess around with if you end up playing the character. I do want to play a Holy Flame Totem build eventually in trade, but let me tell you, it will be way better in trade. Ho, 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 ho. Now, one last pit stop before we get to Exarch and Ire. I am trying to craft a chest here. We did drop another 5-link. I've been blessed, maybe because I'm not doing tree, right? Maybe the game is pitying me. But here it's a red-blue one, which is way better for the colors that we have. And here, like I said, we can just get the right gems, mainly combustion we're missing, which is nice. Mainly missing combustion, right? Feels so much better having a real 5-link, though. Now here's our first tier 16. Unfortunately, it's not the right one for our influence, as I skipped around a lot because I went from T13 to 14, then to 16 because of corruptions. Remember, corruptions can +1 to your level of the map. So we're just simply going to do a T16 real quick. And like I said, this means that our Kirak missions are T16s, which means, we can drop more T16s from those Kirak missions, which then allows us to sustain very easily and then, finish out all our stuff. Now, of course, our damage is, a little lackluster at this point, but I'm literally wearing absolute rags at this point, like most characters would be if you're bum rushing your first 2 stones. Now for Exarch, I did die a few times because the balls. I hate the balls so much. Oh my goodness. Also, I checked my character sheet after doing the fight, and I was at 30 fire res, which is why I ended up dying so much to Exarch. I did not know this when I did it beforehand because, like, I was not paying attention because I was really tired. But yeah, here's the rest of the Searing Exarch fight. I'm simply going to, not show the rest, as it's just me dying over and over again because I have no fire res. By the way, I have no lightning res either. I wonder how Eater's gonna go. Now for the final boss of the video, it's gonna be Eater of Worlds. Pretty much, you're just dancing with him the whole time. Nothing too crazy. The biggest issue is I was not lightning res capped, and the big beam that he calls down does lightning damage, so I have to be very careful and not get touched by it. But pretty much other than that, there's not too many things that will kill you here. It's just me being bad at the video game, obviously. I walked into a few of his big novas that do a bunch of damage for some reason. Like, I literally just walked into it. Like, I would have walked into it accidentally. I think the problem is I'm not used to not playing on WASD because I've been playing PoE 2 for a while, and I'm still trying to detox my hands and get back to click to move, right? That's the biggest issue here. Okay, and that's going to be it for the video today. I had a lot of fun with Holy Flame Totem. Would I recommend this? No. But I do want to play a Holy Flame Totem build eventually once, Trade League comes around in next season. Maybe we'll have some fun then. But all that being said, this has been Dread. Off to go play some more PoE 1, I believe. Bye.